Good evening, councillors, officers, members of the public, fourth estate, if any. And we'll start in our usual way by having prayers, and I'll ask Michael to lead us.
Thank you, Chairman. God our Father, we pray for the members of this council meeting tonight with the officers as they continue to make decisions in a difficult economic climate. We pray also for the continuing engagement of members of this council, town council and churches together to discuss matters of mutual concern for the well-being of this town and also other contacts with parish councils. As we prepare for Christmas, help us to find time in our busy lives for quiet and thought, that we may reflect upon the Christmas message, the birth of Jesus Christ, and also enjoy a break, a time with family and friends. Amen. Amen.
Move on to the minutes now. If at any point my voice falls below audibility at the back, please wave and I'll do my best to speak up. Minutes. Is it your wish that I should sign these as a correct record? Right. Deborah, you have an amendment.
Yes, a couple of amendments. Council minutes from 2nd of October, the list of attendees mentions Councillor Deanna Edmund twice, and it's omitted Captain Paul's name. The strategy group minutes from the 20th of November, there's a typo. The minute reference SG 6814 should be resources issues rather than access and communication issues. And the S&I minutes on the 11th of November references Advice Bureau, and it should be Citizens Advice Bureau.
Thank you very much. Is it your wish that I should sign the minutes with those amendments?
Agreed.
Thank you. Apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence?
Councillor Sean Connors and Councillor Diana Oswald.
Are there any others?
Yes, Councillor Howe.
Councillor?
Howe.
Thank you. Any others? Any advance? No? Thank you very much. Are there any declarations of interest from members? Yes, Councillor Perry.
Yeah, I'd just like to declare an interest in case there's any debate on the Planning Committee 8th of October application DA20140455. It's adjoining the site's adjoining the property line.
Thank you very much. Any others? No? Okay, so move on to Chairman's announcements. And I've followed the practice started by my predecessor, Councillor Long, by sending you already a list of engagements that I've undertaken on your behalf. There are two additions which I spotted about 2 minutes ago, and they were both in October. We anticipated October's events, but not all of them are on there. On the 16th of October, I attended the High Sheriff's Court Service, which was an extremely impressive occasion, full of judges and barristers and goodness knows what, police, everybody. And on the same evening, rushing madly from Northampton to Daventry, I attended the Daventry Sports Awards, which again was an excellent occasion and continues to grow year by year. So that was very good. I have nothing else to say about the events I've been to, except I'm still working my way through a large number of religious services, civic services. They're all very different. The two that actually stand out for me so far have been the High Sheriff's Service, because that was so different, and the service welcoming the new head at Spratton Primary School, because to me that was a unique service and very, very entertaining and enjoyable, followed by a visit to the school where I was questioned very closely and very intelligently by two classes of children, so that was great fun. And I reminded to you, if you would like me to attend anything in your wards, any community events, either formally or informally, please let me know, and I should be delighted to come along if available. And I think that's about all, except one more, clothes for Christmas. Can I say what a magnificent response there has been from the community for the clothes for Christmas. I'm surprised there's room for any of us in this building. The number of bags of very good clothing, which is currently working its way over to Northampton, to the Hope Centre there. And that is all, I think, for this evening. Thank you very much. Oh, don't forget, sherry, mince pies, what? No, not sherry, but certainly mince pies and wine and soft drinks if you don't drink wine after the council meeting in Committee Room 1. Do join me. Thank you. And we move on now to questions under Council Procedures Rules number 10 and 11. Just to remind everyone of the benefit of members of the public, these questions will be put, they will be answered, and apart from supplementary from the questioner, there is no debate. Thank you very much for that. The first one we have. Sorry? I'm on the wrong side of the page. The first question is from members of the public, and it's Mr. Chris Myers, and it's a question to the leader.
Thank you for inviting me to put a question. I'd just like to say I've just read the Daventry Express and was very pleased to hear a good report about one of the secondary schools, the Academy, which apparently is making good progress since its inspection. I used to teach there, so I have a particular interest. My question is to the leader. Another secondary school, meaning the Daventry village, head teacher has stepped down in Daventry. There is an increasing trend of parents choosing secondary schools outside the district instead of more accessible schools in the town. What are the plans of the District Council to help restore confidence in educational provision locally?
Good evening, Madam Chairman. I'd like to thank Mr. Myers for his question. As many local people will know, the Daventry District Council has long worked with the County Council and others to try and improve the quality of local education on the back of a growing population. In fact, education and skills training is one of the foundation stones of our vision, Madam Chairman, as we attract continued inward investment in high-skilled jobs to this area. Whilst both Guildsborough and Malton schools are excellent secondary schools, schooling in Daventry town has been somewhat mixed over the years and has struggled in many ways over the years. And as a result, many parents, as you quite rightly say, Mr. Myers, have taken their children elsewhere. This council's efforts have helped secure the UTC and hopefully soon a new campus for Northampton College in the town. However, it's a real concern that the town's two secondary schools both seem to have issues, and it tends to vary. One has one than the other, what I've seen over the years. However, we must be careful not to speculate, but I understand people's concerns. We've also had to be realistic about the amount of control we have as a district council. We're not the education, as you will realise, have been in the school, we're not the local education authority, that's the county council's role. But even nowadays, the county council has limited powers, as both schools are academies. However, part of the EAP change, as it happens, we have, however, written to the county council expressing our concern and asking that they take whatever action is possible from their point of view to secure improvements at both schools. I'm also seeking a meeting with the portfolio holder there, Matt Golby, to see what influence he can bring to try and improve standards at the two senior schools. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Myers, do you wish to exercise your right to put a supplementary question?
Yes, I must admit it's a bit out of the top of my head, but is there a strategy, a plan on the district council in which, with all the new housing which is planned around Daventry, for there to be a third secondary school within the area of Daventry town?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The problem is, it's the county council that decide that. They have the numbers, they work on the population growth, they work on the anticipated pupil numbers. So they're the ones who actually plan. Actually, be aware in Daventry there are new junior schools to be proposed on the back of new estates and what have you. But the reality is that the county council decides that, not us. But what I would say is we've been keen ever since 2003, taking into account the growth we are anticipating in Daventry and our growth plans. We recognise the importance of good schools in Daventry, whatever level they're at. And that's why I think the UTC in a way is great news, because it offers another alternative from the 14 to 19-year-olds. And I hope more and more children and parents will recognise that and take advantage of that offer as well, without damaging the schools who already have the number of pupils in place. I think it's important that all of us think about the pupil rather than their own areas of, what should we say, sovereignty. And I think it's very important schools do that as well, that they actually do focus on the child. And therefore I'd like to see more promotion of the UTC, because I think those who've been to see it, probably yourself, Jen, recognise what a wonderful facility that is. However, we like to see our schools really performing well, and that gives confidence to everyone. There's no point people come to live in Daventry if in fact they're sending their children off to Rugby or Warwickshire or Northampton or anywhere else for that matter. We want them to be schools here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. And we have a second question from Mr. Ken Ritchie.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to read the question. As it's quite a long one, as it's in front of people, I don't know if you're happy to accept it as having been read. Are you?
That is really up to councillors, but I'm aware that some of you may not have had a great deal of time to look at it. So would you be happy for Mr. Ritchie actually to read his question?
Thank you. Well, my question is that in the coming months, all major political parties will be setting out their policies in immigration and the rights of immigrants to benefits. But while that debate on these issues is necessary and legitimate, there is a danger that it will cause concern to many UK citizens resident in the district. Will Daventry District Council therefore consider setting up a working group of councillors and community representatives with the task of preparing proposals to foster deeper understanding and harmony amongst the different communities that make up the population of Daventry District, and to prepare recommendations which may include, firstly, events that promote greater understanding of greater understanding by the district's UK citizens of the background, culture, aspirations of those who have come to the district from other countries. Secondly, events that promote the integration of people from other countries into the wider life of Daventry District. Thirdly, the production of a booklet for use in schools and colleges and other organisations that describes the diversity of Daventry District's population, the cultures and histories of its different communities, and the contributions they make to the district. And the twinning of Daventry District with towns and our districts in the home countries of significant communities within the district.
Thank you, Steve. Well, thank you for the question, Mr. Richard. A long question. I'm going to be quite short answer, actually. I'm happy to consider setting up such a group. I think we do an enormous amount already to try and integrate. We do have a lot of... we don't have many issues in Daventry, but we'll take it for granted that will continue to be the way. One thing I would say is I would certainly consider that on the back of your question, Mr. Ritchie, and also advise you in due course.
Thank you, Councillor. Do you have a supplementary question?
I'm grateful for that response. I think that the only supplementary question I would put would be recognising that we have got many people who have come to the district from other countries in the European Union with voting rights, and yet research suggests that within this district, only a very tiny percentage of them ever exercise these rights, whether or not they are registered to vote. And I'd just be interested to know what action the district is taking just to ensure that the registration levels of people from other European countries is as great as it should be, and that they understand that although they may not have rights to vote in the general election next year, that they nevertheless have rights to vote when it comes to district elections.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah. On that particular point, Mr. Ritchie, I can't give you an honest answer now because obviously I would need to find out more detail. But it'd be helpful to have your research. You can pass that on to me by email. I'd be most grateful. One thing I would say about our council, for our community safety partnerships and other forums, we do work with policing colleagues across the board in community organisations where we recognise people do come from all over the world in some places, and they live in Daventry, and we want to make sure they're integrated into our community. If you're saying this research can show that maybe people don't really understand what their rights are, it would really help to have that research, and we'll take it on from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. We now move on to questions from members of council. There are 4 of these. The first is from Councillor Daventry.
Thank you, Chairman. Following the report to Strategy Group on the 21st of November 2013 and subsequently full council on the restoration of Weedon Depot, can the portfolio holder outline the progress actions of the council today?
Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm grateful for the question because it gives us an opportunity for us to make sure that everybody is up to date with progress or otherwise with the Weedon Depot. Members may recall that last year at Strategy Group and subsequently at Council we made a proposal of the establishment of an appropriate structure to allow the Council to act as money holders should the owner of the property manage to attract development grant funding from a variety of sources. We thought it would be a good idea to work closely with the owners in order to ensure that they were carrying out an appropriate plan for the future of the heritage asset, which is the Weedon Depot. And we acknowledge the fact that because it's on the Heritage at Risk register, it's important that something should happen as soon as possible. Following that time, also I should report that at that time we were in contact with the then current owners, Weedon Garrison Limited, who had identified potential funding from various sources and were hoping to use that to safeguard the building and its surrounds as the heritage asset. The current position is that the Council did therefore develop a very positive engagement with Weedon Garrison Limited, which did appear to be leading to a solution along the lines set out in the Strategy Group report. However, after that, the owners themselves went very quiet. The only engagement we're able to secure was from the heritage consultant, who appeared to be acting for both sides, both the owners and the potential future owners. Officers from both Development Control and the Conservation Officer responded to requests for information and advice and urged them to engage in a proper pre-application dialogue regarding the proposal for redevelopment of the site, and an impromptu site visit was made recently to check up on its condition and the occupation of the building. The site manager advised people during that visit that the sale of the site to the company called Millhouse was nearing completion. If this does occur, we will pursue engagement with them. That's the current position.
Thank you, Councillor Chandler. Councillor Perry?
Yes, thank you for that response from the portfolio holder. The reason I put the question in the first place is it's a year since that report came, and as a local member I hadn't heard a lot, although some things we've heard that there was possibly might be a new owner on the site, but it was a bit concerning to see on the internet that somebody's selling Weedon Garrison bricks and wooden doors from the site, which makes you wonder why they're selling them if they might be needed on the site. I would ask the portfolio holder to keep the local members in the loop as to what is going on and to carry on and proceed, because I believe it's definitely a priority of Weedon. It's definitely, I would have thought, a priority of Daventry District that we do find a solution, bearing in mind that we go into 2015 and it'll be the 50th anniversary in June when the depot closed and the government vacated the sites, and we're still awaiting a solution.
Thank you, Councillor Perry.
Well, yes, thank you for that extra. I will do my best, if there is any development, to keep the local members concerned informed, and perhaps we can talk outside the meeting about this rumour of parts of the building being sold off, because I'd like to pursue that, but clearly that's not for the meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Again, Councillor Perry, you have a second question, and this time it's to Councillor Cribbin.
Yes, how long has the current contract with Enterprise for environmental services got left to run, and when will officers begin to the process of working on a new contract for tendering purposes?
Thank you, Chairman. I thank Councillor Perry for his question. Members will recall that the contract was for a 7-year period with an option to renew for a further 7 years should that be the council's desire at the time when the option became available. Now, the contract was initially let in June 2011. We are now roughly 3.5 years through the contract, with the end date being June 2018. Now, members will probably recall that following a scrutiny task panel, we brought something back to a strategy brief a little while ago, just giving you an indication as to what the potential direction of travel would be for the environmental services going forward. Now, I'm informed by the officers that there is some work going on in the background with regard to what we might be doing in the future with regard to environmental services, but nothing concrete has been put down. But there is likely to be a firm plan about what we're going to be doing coming forward in or around June 2016. That's when we'll be looking to decide what we're going to be doing in the future. Now, there is a prospect that we will be looking at perhaps smaller contracts for different things in the future, or it may be a one contract thing for the future with one company, but at the moment we can't give any further information. But just to reassure you that about 2 years before the end of the contract, we will be making significant steps to think about what we're going to do in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Cribbin. Councillor Perry?
Thank you. That answers some of it. It's in regard, particularly with some of the problems that we face in the village with the closed churchyard. The county is known as the county of spires and whatnot. We're known for our churches. We have a small number of closed churchyards. There's been a number of problems ongoing, in particular in Weedon. That's the feedback I'm getting from people. And it seems to me that it's the tail wagging the dog. What I would like the environment portfolio holder to do would be to actually liaise with these people, and if possible, when the contract comes up for a reprocessing thing, the closed churchyards can be dealt with as a separate issue away from the main contract, simply because I don't think that we're getting necessarily value for money. We're certainly not getting a specialism on the type of issues which come up in closed churchyard, and there's many people, whether they're churchgoers or not, have a pride. It is one of the civic centres of the village, and to hear some of the comments I've had over the last 12 months, I'm afraid it's a little bit embarrassing, because I can't answer the questions. The officers have tried their best but it just doesn't seem to be as well as what it was before the contract.
Thank you, Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, we'll certainly consider that. It's something that the strategy group was presented with the option of palming off parts of the contract onto different contractors in the future. So that's something we can definitely think about. I think other villages have actually expressed an interest, let's say, for that sort of thing to happen in their area as well. And we have had 1 or 2 meetings with villages in the past. Happy to try and meet with your people in Weedon if you need to, so we can talk about that going forward. Obviously, if there are any particular issues that we can try and resolve before the end of the contract, all well and good, but it's something that I know other villages are looking towards, and we have had problems with grounds maintenance in the Daventry town area, which is something that we are looking forward to trying to address in a different way going forward with the new contract.
Thank you, Councillor Curry. I'll move on to a question from Councillor Wendy Randall to Councillor Trapp.
Thank you, Chairman. Can you please tell me from what development the S106 contribution is for the proposal of the Lodge Road enhancement, and who puts forward the proposal of where the money for town centre enhancement is to be spent?
Chairman, thank you, Councillor Randall. A few questions, so I'll deal with the first one first. You asked me for which developments. There's 2 planning applications here. It's DA 2008-0392, Millimore 6B for Bravo. And then we go on to 2007-123 REM WND, which is Millimore 5B. And 2008-123 REM WND, Millimore 6A. I can put these in writing to you if you want later, Wendy. All of which are described as town centre contributions. And the total, £210,000. There's also 2011-0032 out WND and 2011-0038 out WND, both at Fords, which are for infrastructure including town centre enhancements, for a total of £169,000. That's the first question. It's okay?
Thank you.
Well, the second question, it is strategy group that recommends where money for town centre enhancement is to be spent, and hence the later budget item on the agenda tonight. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Moore. Do you wish to ask anything? Thank you. In that case, we go on to the last question. It's from Councillor Maureen Luke.
Thank you, Chairman. Will this council reconsider its policy on the living wage and pay its workers enough money to prevent in-work poverty? The idea behind the living wage is very simple. A person should be paid enough to live decently and to adequately provide for their family. At its heart is an ethical argument for preventing in-work poverty. A living wage should not be seen as a privilege but a basic right. Poverty in work needs to end. Research in 2014 found that goods and services people say they need for an adequate standard of living has changed little since research carried out in 2008. However, people's ability to afford them has declined. Wage growth has been slow. Changes to tax credits and benefits have affected household incomes. Since 2008, the cost of essentials has risen by 28%, faster than general inflation. The living wage is central to addressing in-work poverty. That's why the Prime Minister says it's an idea whose time has come. Paying the living wage is a recognised sign of good practice in employment and respect that people who need council services work. The living wage is currently £7.85 an hour. Will this council join many district and city councils and rapidly increasing numbers of businesses countrywide and pay the living wage?
Thank you. Councillor Miller. Councillor Griffin.
Thank you, Chairman. This council has 16 employees who are paid below the level of the living wage. The living wage is a national rate calculated by reference to notional costs for accommodation and living expenses. A number of options to implement the living wage have been considered. Some options do not maintain differentials between jobs, which is likely to demotivate employees, and where a job evaluation system, such as we have here, has been applied, the integrity of the system is destroyed. To apply the same pay increase sufficient to raise the lowest pay to the level of the living wage and treat all employees the same would cost over £700,000 for employees, and therefore would add significant costs to leisure and environmental services if applied to existing contracts. This council has, over the past 4 or 5 years, worked hard to adjust its finances in response to the recession and financial restrictions from the government. Adopting the living wage with the cost of over £700,000 could not be done without impacting severely on jobs and services. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Griffin.
Thank you, Chairman. It's roughly the same answer as we got previously to a motion asking for the living wage to be paid, but other councils managed to incorporate it, and I'd really like to see the evidence that it would cost that much money to give 15 workers the living wage. They're trying the agenda, they're going to cut benefits again for people, and I think this council should think seriously about the poor people that they're putting into hardship and have to live on food banks and clothing, which we're proud that people have given this clothing. I'm really sad about it. I'm angry about it because we shouldn't be doing it. We should be paying people money that they're able to live on. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. If you could see the report that went to the council in 2013, the evidence is there. However, our lowest paid DDC employees get 6.84p per hour. The minimum wage is above the minimum wage, which is £6.50, and as you've already informed us, the living wage is 7.85 per hour. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. We'll now move on to agenda item 7, motion under Council Procedure Rule 12, to consider a motion for which notice has been given by Councillor Abigail Campbell and Councillor Wendy Randall. Councillor Campbell.
Thank you. Yes, the motion is that this council notes that since 2010 the number of people on 0 hours contracts has risen to approximately 1.4 million. This council believes that without secure employment it is hard to budget, to rent or buy a home, access credit or to plan childcare and to arrange transport. This council therefore resolves to investigate the use of 0 hours contracts for directly engaged, contracted and subcontracted council employees, where employees are found to be on 0 contracts, to 1, define them as employees, ensuring delivery of the national minimum wage and associated rights, including holidays, maternity and sick pay. 2, offer guaranteed hours contracts with a maximum percentage of overtime, so that this does not replace regular hours. And 3, only allow opt-out of guaranteed hours contracts with a compromise agreement following legal or trade union advice. Also, that for all new appointments, we follow the practice above, and on a case-by-case basis, ensuring procurement contracts are only awarded to employers who police not only their own employment practices, but those of their supply chain. And finally, that we call on other local employers to end the use of exploitative 0 hours contracts.
Thank you. Councillor Randall, do you wish to?
Can I reserve my right to speak?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. This isn't really relevant to us, as we don't use 0 hour contracts. I think I have mentioned this before, strategy group. We have already asked our main contractors, EMS and SLM, when the living wage issue was being considered, to discover if they use 0 hours contracts. EMS use employment agency staff rather than using these 0 hour contracts, and SLM use casual employment contracts for short-term seasonal type work, but definitely not 0 hours contracts.
Thank you. Councillor Paul?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think it's worth pointing out that this has already been picked up by the government of the day, Madam. One of the culprits, shouldn't use that word because being Sports Direct. We have a Sports Direct facility in Daventry, one in Rugby, one in Northampton. However, the government at this moment in time are looking into Sports Direct with regard to 0 hours contracts for them to discontinue. Thank you, Madam.
Councillor Luke?
Chairman, it's very pleasing to hear that we do not use 0 hour contracts nor any of our contractors. I think it can only fall to us to advertise even further that we disapprove of 0 hour contracts and make it clear that this council does disapprove and that we don't use it. I think that would be beneficial to us all.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Trotman.
Thank you, Madam. It's a comment really. It might be useful, it might not. But for 13 years I worked on a 0 hours contract for the government agency, and it is therefore a perfectly legal and upright means of engaging help.
Thank you. Any other contributions? No? Councillor Randall, would you want to make your statement now?
Yes, thank you. Just to say that, yes, I supported this motion, and I also was very pleased to hear that, that we don't use 0 hour contracts. And I get what Councillor Chandler says, and if it's a mutual agreement, which in some cases is, that is fine. It's more to the point where there are quite a number of workers within this district and in fact within this town that actually do turn up for work 5 days a week to actually be turned away as soon as they get there. So again, I think it would be good to actually advertise the fact that this council does not use 0 hour contracts, and to promote that other businesses follow us in the same way. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Campbell?
I have a few words in support of the motion. It's a bit late. So it was a year ago that this council, as we just discussed, decided not to agree to Labour's proposal that would pay its lowest paid employees a living wage. And we see this motion as a new opportunity for the district council to show leadership and to be at the vanguard of a new local campaign to improve employment conditions for our residents. I'm reassured by officers that no employee at DDC is on a 0 hours contract. This is to be welcomed. Not just welcomed, but as my colleagues have said, celebrated publicly and used as a lever to encourage similar good practice amongst the employers it contracts and among other employers in the district. I'm aware the government's already intervened to stop employers from being able to require 0 hours workers to work exclusively for them, but that doesn't do anything to change the practices of companies that base their workforce management strategy on 0 hours contracts. And just to pick up Councillor Chandler's point, this isn't about the exceptional use of 0 hours contracts for what might be short-term or seasonal work, which we acknowledge some employers and workers may find convenient. The Chancellor's autumn statement highlighted the Coalition's failure to make much of an impact on productivity, with a record balance of payments deficit and average earnings, I'm sure we're all aware, are still far below their 2010 level in real terms. Government borrowings are forecast to rise to 91 billion this year, and there's no expectation of balancing the books before 28-19. And what went wrong for Mr Osborne? Well, fewer income taxes have come in than expected in last year, partly because of the increase in personal allowances, but mainly because of low pay and insecure employment. And 0 hours contracts are a big part of this picture. So we think that there's a moral and an economic imperative to end exploitative 0 hours contracts nationally, but also locally here in Daventry District. And that's why we don't, far from seeing this as a relevant motion, it's an entirely relevant motion. And we're a big local employer and we have a high profile, and it's an opportunity to share our concerns about 0 hours contracts on our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. I was about to move to the vote.
Move to the vote.
Having the motion having been summed up, I was about to move to the vote. Those in favour of the motion, please show. Thank you. Those against? The motion is lost. Thank you. We now move on to reports of committees. I wish that we accept these. Noted. We have moved on to agenda item 8. Is it your wish to take these as read? Thank you very much. Would you like to read the 8? Thank you. Now we move on to the recommendations of the committees on page 73. They've got their for me, some rustling that was going on. And the first one we have is on page 73 is SG 591401 Community Collective Energy Switching Campaign. Councillor Cribben.
Thank you, Chairman. Just like to remind members here that the Community Collective Energy Switching Campaign started on the 2nd of December. We sent out a press release and I've done some press coverage with regard to getting that out and about around the district. It's very easy to sign up to this scheme. It's a way of actually saving yourself money on your energy bills, and about 98% of the people that signed up to a previous scheme with the company that we're using at the moment saved in the region of about £200. So we are proposing that all our people in the district at least go and have a look at our website and on a big switch Daventry to try and see whether they can save any money. There's no obligation to anybody to have to take up an offer, but if you put your name down, then you may save yourself a couple of £100. Now, this recommendation is just to show that we will review the effectiveness of this scheme after the initial auction. The initial auction is going to take place in the early part of 2015, and we've got various roadshows across the whole of the district leading up to that to show people how easy it is to switch and get their name down on the list. Everybody that registers will be given a personal quotation, and then there'll be a reverse type auction where all energy companies will be invited to put forward a proposal to each person that's signed up, and then you can decide whether or not you wish to take that up in the future. So I'll just endorse that to everybody in the chamber. And just say that this recommendation is just here to say that we will review the effectiveness of this once the scheme is closed, and we'll see how many people have signed up.
Thank you, Councillor Griffin. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Hills.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. I support this proposal. I support what is being proposed, actually, to help our community. I think it's something that will give us and will give the community the benefit of our expertise or their expertise. So I totally support this.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else would like to comment? No? I wonder if I might ask a question for clarification from the Chair. Thank you. Councillor Quidman, the figure that has been quoted, bearing in mind that a good part of the district doesn't have gas, will this make a big difference to the maximum amount that might be saved? Or is that a dual, is that the figure on the basis of the dual fuel?
Thank you, Chairman. Those figures, I mean, obviously this scheme is only in relation to gas and electricity.
Yes.
So I'm fully aware that certain parts of the district aren't on a mains gas supply.
Yes.
And therefore, I think there are other schemes. I think Councillor Sharkey probably knows a little bit about a joint oil buying scheme in the Elcroft area. Yes, it would be, if you're a dual fuel person, then the figures are likely to be in the higher range. We can't guarantee that every single person will actually save, because some people may be on the best tariff that they can get at the moment anyway. But what we're hoping is that this is a joint scheme. The more people in it, the better rate we're going to get from the energy companies. So it really does really rise or fall on the fact of how many people actually put their name forward and register, because the company, at the end of the day, the company wants to make a profit, so therefore the more people it's likely to sell its gas and electricity to, the better deal we're likely to get.
Thank you very much for that clarification. We move to the vote. Recommendation, those in favour?
Thank
you. Anyone against? Thank you. Next is SG 60-1401, Rural Transport Scrutiny and Improvement Task Panel Report. It's Councillor Over. No, yourself. Right.
Thank you. I'm going to propose this recommendation, Madam Chairman. This came out of our Scrutiny Improvement Committee. It was actually a panel assignment chaired by Councillor Frenchman. It's one of those interesting areas because it could be argued we don't have direct accountability for this particular area, but what we can do as a district is use our influence, and this is what we're seeking to do with this recommendation. We know that some of these areas where it's cross boundaries can be quite challenging, and that's why the proposal has been written as it is. So the first one is essentially that a rural economic and transport strategy prepared, taking into account the outcomes of the Scrutiny Improvement Committee task panel on the Council's rural economic role and strategy when these are available. For the sake of clarity, Councillor Perry is bringing to the next Scrutiny Improvement Committee a scoping document to work up this particular strategy. This will take some time in all reality, but what it will actually do is it'll make a more joined-up, coherent approach, which no doubt, I'm sure at some point in the future, Councillor Owen might then come back and propose. But the second one is that the Council shall actively promote existing public transport services in partnership with the NCC, Northampton County Council, bus companies and other relevant organisations. And you can see on this one, Madam Chairman, it commits us to action immediately, and we can get started and crack on straight away, which is the will if we get seconded and recommended this one. So that's the proposal.
Thank you very much, Councillor Morgan. Do you have a seconder? Is that the second?
Thank you, Chair. As some of you know, I got quite passionate about this particular proposal at a group meeting the other day. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend the strategy committee, where I'm sure I'd have shown equal passion as there. Notwithstanding the report that Councillor Perry is preparing, I'd like to make a small but important amendment to this proposition, especially the first one, by adding the words, but nevertheless within, so I can't even read my own writing here, but nevertheless within the next 12 months, so that we actually have a timeline added to this proposal, so that we can make some progress, as there are a number of items that can be started reasonably quickly, and don't have to wait until the report that's mentioned here is completed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Is there a seconder to your amendment?
Chair, thank you very much. I see this as a perfectly reasonable amendment in actual fact, and the main mayor's obstacle to this is Councillor Perry expediting his project. So if we ensure that Councillor Perry, no pressure on Councillor Perry, comes forward, scoping document for the February meeting, which is actually already underway, then we can rattle on with this project and get it through in due course. So I would actually say Councillor Frenchman's amendment there within 1 year makes perfect sense.
Well, it does sound as if speed is of the essence here.
I'm happy to second it, Madam Chairman.
You're second. Thank you. Anyone who wishes to speak? Councillor Campbell.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I welcome the expedition of this particular recommendation. And I think Councillor Morgan is right to highlight the fact that we don't have a statutory role in providing transport of any kind, but we do have an increasing role, I think, and especially when SIL kicks in. I know, the district council is going to have a much greater role than it does already, and it does have a big role, even now, in determining how development contributions are spent. And I have an interest and I have concern about how that is happening in a rather ad hoc basis without a strategy or policy to guide it, and that we as councillors are aware of and up to date with. So I think it's extremely important that we move on this as quickly as possible. I was at the strategy group meeting, and I hope I did make my passion as clear as I could about this issue. I just wanted to recap for members who weren't there. When we say there's a rural economic and transport strategy to be prepared, I just wanted to be clear who was doing the preparing, because I'm not sure that's necessarily clear to everybody in the room. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, as the Scrutiny Committee looks into the issue in the first instance, we will have presentations back from Councillor Perry's committee, this assignment. That'll come through scrutiny. Then what we will do, as we always do with these things, is discuss them and recommend them. It will then come ultimately to strategy, at which point we've recommended the fully worked up strategy that will then come through strategy. Hence the short amount of time it does need to take. But hence why I say if we can get it through as quickly as possible for April or June coming out of scrutiny, then we'll be able to go into that position and have quite a bit of time to then to be worked up by the relevant portfolio order and the officers into a strategy which we can then go and execute.
Thank you, Councillor Newman. I'm going to ask the monitoring officer contribution.
Yes. Thank you, Jim. Just to clarify that because the original motion was seconded by Councillor Frenchman, then came along an amendment, which then was accepted by the proposer of the motion, which was Councillor Morgan. We'll take that as the substantive motion. Amended duly, that's the substantive motion as tabled for the council. Therefore, it's Councillor Morgan's proposed and Councillor Frenchman seconded. Notwithstanding, there was another suggestion of secondary in the background there. So, just to clarify, that's how we'll record it in minutes. Councillor Morgan, seconded by Councillor Frenchman.
Thank you.
Well, having sorted that out, are there any other speakers? No? Well, we move then to... Who was that? It certainly wasn't Councillor Osborne on this occasion.
No, it was Atterbury.
Right. Agreed on this motion? Anyone against? No. Thank you very much. Move on to SG 601402 commercial estate reviews outcome. I believe it's Councillor Over who's going to...
This is indeed, Madam Chairman and members. You see on the report before us SG 601402 commercial estate review outcomes. Members gave consideration to the conclusion of the commercial estate review the possibility of establishing a limited liability partnership with public sector PLC. And you can see below the recommendations. The background of this is that the Leader and myself did attend a meeting in Westminster when this matter related was discussed. And you will recall on the 30th of November, or many members recall on the 30th of November, Richard Smith, who I think is the chairman of Public Sector PLC, and Adam Cunningham, came to this council and they gave a presentation to the members to give a better understanding of what the benefits it might accrue in engaging with themselves. The view, I think, taken by the council was that we are dipping our toes very carefully into this one, just to make certain that everything's going all right. But I was heartened today to receive a memo that said that in actual fact that there has been full scrutiny given to the operations conducted by this particular company, and that they in actual fact had passed muster. The Treasury Solicitors Department obtained for us by the Crown Commercial Services also concluded that this organisation is sound in record principle. KPMG, external auditors to Bolton NBC, and not Bolton NBC, the brief was under just all Borough Council. In actual fact, their arrangements were accepted to scrutiny and were stood up to examination, which I have to say I think is really good news. It may well be of interest to the members of this council that we do in actual fact have a considerable estate, a number of industrial properties, I think about 101, number of high street shops are 8, number of estate shops 11, and we also have a number of community buildings, of which, as you know, the Abbey nearby is one of the principal buildings. And we derive from that a considerable income. But the answer to this question, of course, about engaging with these people is, could we do better? And I think the view is that with the limited resources we have in terms of human resources, that if we engage with these people carefully, with all due diligence, that in actual fact we ought to do a lot better. There may be windows of opportunity, bit by bit, to extract, exploit advantageously for our community, a better use of these assets, which in many cases are now ageing, and the opportunity in actual fact to do something a lot better, and in fact, once again, investment in them into Daventry seems to me to be a step in the right direction. And therefore, members, chairman and members, I would ask in actual that you would be kind enough to hopefully endorse the recommendations on this report, and if there are questions to be asked, and I'm here to do my best, and our officer Simon Bowers, who advises on many of these matters, is also here should you have any questions. Madam Chairman, members, thank you very much.
Do you have a seconder?
Yes.
Is that the seconder? Are you asking us to speak?
No, I'll second it, Chairman.
Right. In that case, Councillor Paul, are you wishing to speak?
I beg your pardon, Madam Chairman. Particularly item 2, and I thank my colleague, but item 2, at the end of the day, is a win-win situation for this council. Moreover, I've looked into it. It also protects our officers, uses their skill base for the greater opportunity. I think it's an excellent project. Thank you, Madam.
Are there any other members wishing to speak? No. In that case, we'll move on to a vote on it.
Agreed.
Anyone against? No. Thank you. Move on to SG 611401, Public Engagement, Scrutiny and Improvement Task Panel Report. Is this another one for you, Councillor?
Madam Chairman, this is indeed. Thank you. So this one is a result of, again, another scrutiny project, this time based on a look at our engagement levels and communication, led by Councillor Randall, showing that scrutiny is indeed across the parties, as it should be. We look at issues in depth with a very good team behind each project. On this particular one, we had 4 recommendations after we've had internal looks at it across the committees leading up to full council, and the recommendations are laid out in front of you, the 4 recommendations. So number 1, that further publicity be given to the People's Panel with a view to increasing the size and diversity of the membership. Again, we're hearing that notion of diversity coming in this evening on this particular recommendation. That signage and access to, for public access to council meetings be improved, subject to, of course, funding available and approved, as should always be the case, and that the community engagement strategy shall be reviewed, taking into account the recommendations of the assignment panel, which is a comprehensive document in itself, but it does say with the exception of broadcasting and council meeting. We've discussed that before on occasions. And number 4, that public participation in elections continues to be promoted, and again this also reflects on the question we had earlier, all about us getting that improving engagement and the democratic position of the council. So that's the proposal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. You have a seconder? Oh, was that a hand? Yes, thank you. Do you wish to speak now? Do you wish to say anything?
Yes, thank you. I'll say something briefly as well. Yes, I was involved in the task panel on this topic, and I spoke at the last strategy group meeting, and I felt at the time that the recommendations that we see before us were rather weaker than the ones supplied in the scrutiny report, but I can also see that they bear within them the potential to explore all the recommendations that we had originally made, and so I'm pleased about that. I do think the second recommendation about signage and access that could be, I would wish it were to be a little bit more of a commitment, because I see it's subject to funding being available through, which of course makes sense, but I do think we could possibly be a little bit more full of commitment about that, because if we're going to do it, we're going to do it. And I think we hear quite a lot in this chamber the sort of unofficial strapline that we're open for business. But I think in a very literal sense we're not, because people cannot get in that door unless somebody's on duty to let them in. It's not, and I know plans are afoot, but I would like to just rehearse here how important I think it's a very simple mechanism that could take place, even if it does have a cost. I also just wondered if we could get a sense of the timescale for these recommendations in terms of, well, all of them really. That would be helpful, just to have that gloss while we're all here to discuss it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Before we move on to any further debate, I understand that Simon Bowers wishes to speak.
Thank you, Chairman. It may be slightly presumptuous of us, given that the council decision hasn't come until tonight, but we have actually already incurred the cost of changing technology at the rear doors. So that should be an issue.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Anybody wish to speak on this motion? Thank you. Councillor Randall.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, it's on the first one actually, because we haven't got, I think there's something like about 350 people on the People's Panel, and bearing in mind of how many thousands we've got in this district, it's how we're going to actually increase that. I know that, you know, that we have it in the Daventry calling, but actually how else we are going to raise awareness and, you know, and push that. And whether it could be something that members could take to their parish councils as well, and, you know, and try and encourage people to sign up to the People's Panel. You know, maybe something along those lines.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you like to comment on that, Councillor Morgan?
Thank you, Chair. I think the key one on here, actually, and I do, again, we see it's an issue again about timing, actually, which is interesting. It's great to see that some members said that work has already begun. The point is that because the third point is all about the community engagement strategy, I think it behoves all of us to do what we can in terms of increasing the size and diversity. And I think the very recommendation itself means we have an undertaking there. I think just go back to Councillor Campbell's point, you know, the word should, I don't want to make an amendment to this, by the way, but for future reference, in the word of ISO, which I spend all my time, in a very simple way around this is to change the word to shall, and then it's basically a commitment. But it is a commitment, it's just the timing of that. So I think the point is we can all do something on this to help increase it. I take on board those views. Particularly Councillor Howard's a portfolio holder. We'll certainly have those we'll be able to take on, but we've got that commitment, which is what we're looking for.
Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. 3 points. Firstly, I speak as one who was asked to leave the People's Panel. We can do more. We can all go back to our parish councils and say, do you know that the People's Panel exists? How many of you are going to go along to it? We do get quite a good turnout when we have the liaison meetings with parish councils, but nevertheless there are more things that we could do. The second point is that there was comment made that in the consultation feedback, or during the report I believe, that somebody said that disabled people were not made to feel welcome at meetings or had difficulty getting to them, and I don't recognise that clearly, but I should perhaps declare an interest. And the final point was on the 4th recommendation. I believe that there is some work in hand to try and raise public interest in the election process.
Thank you. Would you like to?
Madam Chairman.
Councillor, could we have a reply from Councillor Morgan?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Thank you. It's actually in support of, thank you, Madam Chair. It's regarding before actually public participation. Members will be interested to know that our next Scrutiny Improvement Committee meeting we are having a presentation about the new system, electoral system, and we've invited Tony Gillett to come and speak about this issue, and of course you're welcome at Scrutiny Improvement Committee, and again that's our function of being able to bring in people to illuminate subjects for us in that particular form. So that might be welcome on that topic as well. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Luke.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a comment really. I've been reading letters in the local government magazine that we all receive about scrutiny panels and how they're working at the councils. And some councils, several in fact, have made a policy to have a chair from the opposing group. The ruling groups are never chairs of these scrutiny committees in order to emphasise the independence of these scrutiny panels. And I wondered if we may consider that.
Well, it's not relevant to the recommendations before us at the moment, so I'm sure that you can find the proper way of dealing with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Swift, thank you.
Yes, I am a bit bemused by that, because the problem is people never take local government except when things don't work. And that is a problem we have. It's not a problem of engagement. If we do a good job, people don't even want to be engaged. If you look at so people want to be engaged only when things go wrong. So our role is to be present, to make sure we respond to their demand, and they will be engaged. But now, do ask people when do they think about their district council. It's when something goes wrong with their bill. It's not because they cannot vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to come back to Councillor Luke's point. I know you said it wasn't relevant, but people heard what she said. In this council, like some councils, and I won't mention any names, there's a perception sometimes that the administration controls the scrutiny function. Councillor Morgan actually is a free agent as a scrutineer, and I think that's very healthy. It shows confidence the administration has. We want to find out where things can be improved, and I think the scrutiny function of this council does a very good job in that respect, Madam Chairman, as we've seen two of the recommendations this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Any other speakers? No? Would you like to sum up then, Councillor Morgan?
Chair, thank you. I'm not sure there is to sum up in actual fact, but thank you for the comments and thank you for the second. I think the actual, to support Councillor Miller's point there, I mean, the point is they are run, these panels, by various members. Councillor Max, you yourself have run one, and you know we have a very healthy debate before each one comes through, and then it goes on to debate and discussed. So there's no issue whatsoever here, and actually, quite frankly, I hope you support this. It's a good set of recommendations. Thank you very much.
We'll move to the vote. Are you in agreement?
Agreed.
Anybody against? No. Thank you. We move on then to SG 6514-01, Community Infrastructure Levy, submission of charging schedules. Would you like to take us through this, please, Councillor Trottle?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I don't propose to take you through the entire document, in particular not the consultation results, but they are nevertheless interesting, and I may highlight a few points from them. The Community Infrastructure Levy is a newly introduced way of raising money from developers from development, and we are well on the way to drawing up our charging schedule and the associated documentation, and it's all been out to consultation, as you can see from the strategy papers, and there have been some interesting feedback. Not surprisingly, the developers all said we were going to charge too much, and not surprisingly, those who might benefit, the parish councils in particular, said we weren't going to charge enough. So maybe that means we got it about right. The Community Infrastructure Levy, our original plan, of course, was that it would be presented for joint examination with our partners in the West Northamptonshire Joint Planning Unit, but what we're trying to do is to make absolutely certain that should that not prove possible, because that's in the gift, if you like, of the Joint Strategic Planning Committee, they may decide that they don't want the Joint Planning Unit to do that. We need to be ready to do it on our own just in case. So that is why the first recommendation says that documents are approved for submission to independent examination. The SIL cannot be applied until it's been examined and found to be appropriate. The council can choose its own charging schedule, which we've done and shared with people, and the council could make the decision not to apply SIL at all. But that would be rather foolish, I think, since the opportunity is there. The Regulation 123 list, Regulation 123 is part of the SIL regulations. You draw up a list of things on which you might spend your SIL. It is not a list in any priority order. Some of the comments from the consultation said you should prioritise this. Well, it's not appropriate to do that, because you have to decide when you get some money coming in what's important at that particular time and what you can afford. And also, of course, you should bear in mind that Regulation 123 list, although required, is not definitive and final. You can add to it and take away from it with appropriate consultation at any time. And the third part of the first regulation, first recommendation, is that we should allow an instalment policy to be applied for those hard-up developers who want to be able to pay on the drip, as it were, rather than paying it all up front. The second recommendation is that we should note the comments from the consultation of the draft charging schedule, which we've done. And then the final recommendation is that that authority be delegated to the business manager in consultation with the strategic planning portfolio holder to consider and approve where appropriate any changes that might be suggested by the examiner during the examination process or in the report. That is not to say that those two persons would rewrite the charging schedule or even rewrite the 1, 2, 3 list. But we know from our experience with the examinations of joint core strategy that there are often matters of detailed wording that need to be altered, and we want to expedite this as much as possible, so we don't want it to have to come through the route of strategy and council just for making those amendments. Those are the recommendations. I just thought I should add that at strategy group, question was raised whether or not we will be able to apply SIL to a phased development which had been given outline permission before the introduction of SIL. Can we apply it to later phases? Well, it's taken a bit of research on behalf of Simon Bars and his team, and I thank them very much for the effort they've put in to find the definitive answer to this, which I only received a couple of hours ago. And here it is. The key provision turns out to be SIL Regulation 128 on transitional provisions. Regulation 128 paragraph 1 provides that liability to SIL does not arise in respect of development if, on the day planning permission is granted for that development, it is situated in an area in which no charging schedule is in effect. What this means is that you can't apply SIL later on as an afterthought. So we have to advise that it's not possible to apply SIL to later parts or phases of larger schemes, which is a great pity because of the timing. The timing of this whole planning thing has gone sour on many occasions. We're hoping that it will soon come to an end. So therefore I recommend that members please support these recommendations and so that we can make progress with our SIL schedule.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Do we have a second? Councillor Paul.
Yeah, I'm happy to second that, Madam Chairman. I thank Alan for his comprehensive report. Disappointed regarding the phase development. It smacks to me that if you can put 10 houses up instead of 2,000 or whatever, then you can get away with paying. Hopefully that will change, and perhaps Councillor Chandler can correct me on that. Thank you, Madam.
Councillor Chandler, before we open the debate, can you answer?
Well, I can't offer him any words of comfort, Madam Chairman, but I can remind him that I've not been in this job very long, and all the rules change at least once a week. So, watch this space.
That's helpful.
Thank you. Thank you very much. No. Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a question. I thought I read somewhere in planning news that some part of the country, a developer had argued that he wasn't going to pay it, in effect. So, could the portfolio holder tell us, is it law? Do they have to pay it? They can't possibly get out of it? Or can they say, like the article I read, which was in a different county, that they wouldn't pay it? So could you give me the answer to that, please?
I can try, and maybe Simon might be able to help me. My understanding is that there might be a possibility for discussion based on a genuine viability problem with the development. But my understanding is that when SIL is imposed, it becomes due as soon as permission is granted.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Simon Flowers, perhaps.
Chairman, I'm not going to add to that, but essentially the portfolio holder is absolutely correct. SIL is a tax. Once the rate is set, if, as is suggested in the papers, we are not applying exceptional circumstances relief, it's due. I don't know the particular circumstances Councillor Osborne is referring to, It may be a technical question because there are things about relief for an existing building, for example. Knock down one building, build another one, I can technically deduct the floor area of the previous building from what I'm due. So it might be that kind of technical issue. But the basic principle is if you build a building, subject to seal, you pay.
Thank you for that. Councillor Warren.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like a bit of clarification on the draft charging schedule. Is that the same as the council instalments policy?
No. The draft charging schedule is the name of the document which spells out how much you pay for any particular kind of development. The instalment policy is something that's in our gift to decide to apply or not, which allows a developer, having incurred the liability to pay a certain amount because of his development, to pay in instalments rather than all up front.
Thank you for that. Councillor Griffin.
Well, thank you, Chairman. This viability situation, I thought we set that at the very beginning. So does this mean we're going to have arguments over, the final amount with regard to viability? Because obviously national economics change all along the way, and some of these larger developments are going to take perhaps 2 or 3 years even, or perhaps even more. And perhaps viability will come up then to be argued about. Will I be reassured on that, please?
Councillor Charter.
I'll do my best, but I might need help here. My understanding is that if we set a level of sill, then that's what is applied. If somebody says they don't want to pay, then they may find that they've got some way of seeking some sort of succour from that. But I'm sure also that the charging schedule for sill can be reviewed.
Thank you. Is Simon Byers able to add to that in any way?
I can do, Chairman. Again, the portfolio holder is absolutely right. What I would perhaps add is there will certainly be an argument about viability, but it will happen once, and it will happen after the examination, where the developers will queue up to argue that we are seeking to charge too much, and we will seek to defend the council's position.
Thank you. Councillor Warren, I think you wanted to...
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to try and follow on to my question, concerning the council's instalments policy, is it something that we're still working on, or has it been completed?
It's my understanding that the policy is attached, or was attached to the report that went to strategy group as Appendix 4. So we've set out our instalment policy. Of course, it's subject to examination along with everything else.
That's fine, thank you.
Do you want to add to that?
That's fine, Chair, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anything else that anyone would like to contribute? No? Or in that case, we'll move to the vote on this.
Agreed.
Anyone against? Silence. We move on now to SG 661401, Daventry Town Development Implementation Working Group, Terms of Reference. Councillor Over.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Members, this is SG 661401, Daventry Town Development Implementation Working Group, Terms of Reference. This is something of a catching up exercise. Members will be at the Daventry Town Development Implementation Working Group, previously called the Daventry Town Centre Implementation Working Group, has existed since the Daventry Town Vision was put in place in the early 2000s. A little of the background for the benefit of long-serving members. The report the work undertaken at that time with the Civic Trust was an important exercise which focused attention on how the town might develop, regenerate and make the best use of its assets. This included a consultation exercise, meetings with partners, stakeholders, amongst those health service providers, the Daventry District Civic Society, these the views and other interest groups, and of course importantly the citizens of this town. Following this, my Chidi Curran, Chartered Town Planners, produced the first master plan which illustrated how Daventry might be advantageously developed to make provision for the needs and aspirations of a growing and increasingly diverse population. More recently, taking account of further professional and independent advice, changing social and economic circumstances, the adoption of what is now referred to as the 2040 Master Plan. It is against this backdrop that the all-party Daventry Town Implementation Working Group, and note it is an all-party, was established, and taking advantage of members with local knowledge to examine and provide guidance, not without critical comment and submissions and proposals made by or in conjunction with the District Council, its partners and stakeholders, not least amongst these, of course, Henry Boot plc, relating in particular to the regeneration and development of the Daventry Town Centre, notably Mulberry Place. So, Chairman, fellow members, you are now taken account of the terms of reference which you'll see on the strategy group report, and I would ask you to endorse the recommendations before you today on page, what is it, 75, that's right, and I'll perhaps just finish it off by saying to you, just make note of this, this is not a decision-making body, this is actually just a working group, and we only met, I think it was yesterday, of which of course the chairman of this council is actually the vice chairman of the group. Madam Chairman, I ask you to endorse the recommendations on the report before you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Morgan, Councillor Hills.
I'll toss you. I want it, Zeds. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm happy to second this proposal. I think it's very important that it is an all-party group, and as a town member I totally support it. Although it's not making decisions, I think it's a very important group, so I'm happy to second it.
Thank you. Do you wish to speak, Councillor Morgan?
No, Madam Chair, I'll support it.
Thank you. Councillor Lowe.
Thank you very much, Chairman. This group, which I was on for a brief time, was one of the most worthwhile uses of my time ever. And it was hugely informative. And I do think it's a pity that town members are not able to just go and attend that group, because the amount of background you get and the depth of discussion you get is fascinating and very, very useful as a town council. And being as it isn't a party political group and it's not a voting group, it would be really nice if town members were invited to attend.
Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Would you wish to respond to that, Councillor Lowe?
Well, Madam Chairman, there is perhaps a danger here in terms of turning it in perhaps into a sort of something of a debating society if we're not careful, is whether or not in actual fact people attending are just there in actual fact to listen in, but in actual fact not be able to comment, which I think they might find very frustrating, because these meetings sometimes go on for a couple of hours or so, and again they well know. I would be asking you perhaps not to go down that road. I do understand, have some sympathy, empathy with your views, because I know that you turned up on one occasion and quite amusingly, because it got inadvertently listed, that your contribution at that particular time was most worthy. I was very grateful for that, as you obviously know, we were very grateful for that. So I think in actual fact, I just ask you to deal with the terms of reference, and I would ask you in actual fact to endorse that. I think that it works satisfactorily, it has worked satisfactorily the way it is. And as there are members on there anyway, they're able to cross-communicate with their particular groups, and I think they should be in actual fact a vehicle for providing information rather than, as it were, people turning up en masse.
Thank you, Councillor Luke, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Elvis, following my concerns.
Thank you. We'll move to the rest. Colin, Mr.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. Unlike me to speak anyway. Just to remind ourselves that we are a district council, and you know it is supported by members from the district, and in fact you yourself, Madam Chairman. I totally agree with Councillor Loud. It's an excellent group. It has a great deal of commercial sensitivity at times, and hence the reason if you expanded it, then we wouldn't be in the position we are today. A think tank, a sounding board, anything that comes out of it invariably ends up in the public domain anyway. But a worthwhile group, Madam.
Thank you. Councillor Rover, if you wish to come back.
I have nothing more to say. It seems to be we are getting the endorsement that we deserve, and long may that continue to be the case.
Thank you very much. Councillors? Anyone against? Thank you. We move on to SG 671401 ICT Strategy 2014 to 17. Councillor Chandler.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm deputising for my colleague, Councillor Howard, who can't be with us tonight. This obviously falls within his portfolio. But as some of you may have noticed, if you've tried reading the document of strategy group, studying documents like this can be an acquired taste. But it's one I acquired long ago. It's important in these days where we have a government which has an important business strapline, digital by default, that we keep up to date with our ICT provision in both hardware, software, procedures, etc. More and more is being offered online, so more and more we are required to make sure that we can offer access to information securely and readily where appropriate, process information securely and readily where appropriate, etc., etc. I'm very pleased to note that there's another point I should make first, which is that the trouble is when you employ ICT specialists to run your system, that's what they're doing. And if you then ask them to think about how it ought to be running in the future, are they going to stop running it while they do that, or are they going to get on with the job? That is why it's a good idea to employ external consultants to help with this work, which is may have been a question for some of you. I'm very pleased to note that the strategy is as flexible as it is in terms of hardware and software. In other words, we're not committing ourselves to any particular path which might suddenly get cut off, as other people have found in the past with the rapid development of technology, particularly these days in software. So you will enjoy the pretty picture on page, whatever it was, 127, which shows the schematic for what I've just been talking about. So therefore I strongly recommend that we adopt this ICT strategy so that we show our colleagues who work within the ICT provision here that we are behind them in what they are doing.
Thank you very much. Have a second. Councillor Poole.
Happy to second that, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
And then the wishes to speak, Councillor Lambert.
Thank you, Chairman. I did bring this up at strategy group actually about the lack of being able to upload photographs. You know, I've had quite a numerous amount actually of residents within my ward that actually, if they want to put something as a complaint, that actually there's not enough spaces for them to express themselves. And obviously, a lot of the time, photos speak louder than words, and actually they couldn't upload a photograph. So if they wanted to, photograph of, say, the bottom of a bin that was hanging out and jagged, that they actually couldn't take a photograph and upload it. And the portfolio holder did say that this was being looked into, but obviously a lot more people now using IT all the time. That has become, a major part of their life, and when we may see this happening. Thank you.
Yes, I'll attempt to address that. I do remember that being raised. What you must realise is that the only thing that moves rapidly in this field is the cost. But that is being looked at seriously as being a provision which ought to be available, and I'm sure it can be made available. If I may, Madam Chairman, I did mean to draw members' attention to the fact that in the report that went with the strategy group, it was pointed out that it was proposed to appoint a junior to ICT staff to help with the implementation of this strategy. Members should be aware of that.
Thank you. Would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Just to add to Councillor Champion's words in respect to the photo issue, we are working to develop that, and we're hopeful that will be available shortly as part of the self-serve process. But it is possible through emails to actually send the photographs in.
Thank you for that. Councillor Carter, did I see your hand?
Not on this issue.
No, fine. Anyone else?
About 50 minutes ago.
No. I saw that as well. Right, we'll move to, unless you'd like to say anything else, Councillor Carter?
No, I move that we accept the recommendation. Agree.
Anyone against? No. Okay, thank you. SG 68-1401, planning appeal legal costs. Councillor Guildford.
Thank you, Chair. You have before you a recommendation that seeks funding approval for a robust defence of planning appeals in connection with the refusal of major housing development. Provided that these appeals are properly defended. You've heard me say it before, and you'll probably hear me say it again. I apologise for repeating myself. But failure to provide an adequate defence of the reasons for refusal could lead to awarded costs against this council. It would be considerable. Within the report, the Deputy Chief Executive has previously detailed approved the use of contingency funding to meet these costs. However, if this is not sufficient contingency funding or other budget understandings are unavailable, it is recommended that these costs are met from the earmarked legal reserve. By providing a robust defence, PDC is taking a prudent approach. That word again, I apologise, and it is hoped that the likelihood of an award of significant costs against the council can be reduced.
Thank you. The Home Seconder? Councillor Frenchman. Anyone wish to speak? No? Okay, I take it, Councillor Guildford, that you've said what you want to say. In that case, we'll move to the vote. Agree with the recommendation? SG 68-1402, Welfare Reform Council Tax Support Scheme, again, Councillor Guildford.
Thank you, Chair. Before you have a recommendation for the final scheme of the council tax scheme for 15-16 set out in section 6 of the report that was circulated at strategy. There was a debate, a hefty debate, which I was pleased about, because we do need to take these decisions very seriously, and I too have looked at this before bringing it to strategy with councillors. At strategy, I outlined the history of the council tax support scheme. In 13-14, funding was reduced by 10%, and in 15-16 it will be reduced by a further 15.6%. In monetary terms, this is a loss of income equating to 51,000. Rather than go through the report in detail again, I want to focus in on some of the points that was raised in the debate at strategy, and I've brought some facts and figures with me tonight. If we look at the consultation response, although those opposed to the change have increased from 47% in 13-14 to 57% this year, it should be noted that the response rates from those affected by the change is very low. 2.6% in 13-14 and 2.5% this year. So you could argue that the remaining 90% did not feel strongly enough about the change to respond, those affected. The cost to residents, within the report, £2.55 is quoted. However, this is an average of all 2,096 claimants. The majority of claimants are in band A to C, and this will affect between £1.31 to £1.64, an average of £1.47 per week. So that's 92%. Regarding the reduction in subsidy, we're still continuing to subsidise the scheme. We're not covering our costs. The scheme costs us 35%, so already a subsidy is in place. We're not proposing to increase the cap to cover all of the cost, so there will remain a subsidy in place to help those more vulnerable. With regards to protecting the most vulnerable, the current proposal is to set a scheme for year 3 of the council tax support. It might be helpful to understand consideration and protections for the most vulnerable in years 1 to 2. Year 1, we consulted on a 12% liability cap and some changes to discounts and exemptions. During the consultation period, the government announced some further funding, and we reacted, and we will be able to reduce the liability cap to 8.5% in the agreed scheme. Year 2, in the face of further funding cuts, the decision was made to protect the most vulnerable by holding the liability cap at 8.5%. So we reduced it, we held it, and we made up the shortfall by introducing the premium on a long-term empty properties. Year 3, the current year, the current recommendation is to increase the liability cap from 8.5 to 20%. We're running out of options, and we've had to look at seriously increasing the subsidy this year. The decision was not arrived at lightly. Faced with a further funding grant reduction of 51k and having exhausted the discounts and exemptions, our only option was to at least partly cover the shortfall, is to increase the liability cap. The recommendation of 20% cap still leaves DDC with a 21k shortfall, which will need to be found elsewhere. If we can now just talk about NCC, Northamptonshire County Council, the shortfall for DDC is minimal in comparison with that of NCC, who at a cap of 20% will have a shortfall of 185,000. For illustrative purposes, the September Strategy Group report set out the impacts of a 15% cap at 36k for DDC and 329,000 for NCC. You may say, well, is that our problem? Well, it is. Given the current budget difficulties at NCC, any additional shortfall in council tax receipts can only add to the pressure on services provided by them to the most vulnerable residents of the county, including those in our district. So by increasing our cap, we are actually helping those most vulnerable and trying to protect them for any further cuts in the future. In summary, as I said at Strategy, I've given much thought and spoke at length before I actually presented the report and the subsequent proposals. In this instance, it's a financial decision that had to be made that we knew would not be popular. But the decision has been made for the benefit of the community and to try and protect the vulnerable as opposed to political impact. The driver for this decision is to try and sustain services as explained in the report. The vulnerable have been protected under the scheme along with pensioners. As resources portfolio holder, it is my responsibility to try and protect services that make the biggest difference to the most vulnerable members of our community and to help deliver the financial decisions that we have to make that are hard. But I therefore ask that the members approve the recommendation as put forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gill. Your seconder.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to second this. Actually, I think Councillor Guildford there has given us a very comprehensive analysis of the issue. I think in reality it's one of those issues that we can't duck. We have to be serious about it. We do have to be prudent and spending the money wisely, particularly with the shortfall here. I think Councillor Guildford has actually really set out how we've absorbed what we can. I think that's the watchword here. This is a long road, and I think we need to support this to make sure we're prepared going forward and share the burden, matter of fact. So I certainly second this recommendation.
Any other members wish to speak? Councillor Chancellor.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. There was some discussion at a strategy group amongst members, and it became clear that many of us, I count myself included here, were not very well up to date with what other sources of income might be available to these vulnerable people who don't qualify for the protection that has been mentioned. And I just thought I would take this opportunity to mention that I did find, by doing a bit of Googling, I think that's a verb these days, I did find 10 documents which are helpful, and I wondered if I could find a way of making those available to my colleagues so that they could save a bit of time. These cover things like the personal independence payment and ESA and things of that nature.
That's something to which you can draw people's attention on the email, is it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll find a way of I'll find a way of depositing them somewhere so that people can access them, perhaps via Daventry.
I apologise, Councillor Campbell.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Councillor Guildford, for taking the time to put extra work in for that response and introduction. I think it's much appreciated. It was obviously new work that you've done in order to introduce this paper, and I think that was very welcome. But I do think it is outrageous to imply that the reason why people didn't take part in this consultation was that they couldn't be bothered, which is effectively what you said. And I think I would like to call for a kind of retraction or apology, whatever the terminology would be. I just think we've talked about public engagement tonight already. I think there's a lot we need to do as a council to encourage people who feel they don't have a voice to take part in consultations, especially ones like this. And I think we didn't even give people who did take part in the consultation the courtesy of responding to their comments individually. It was just wrapped up in a general report, and not when we consult with businesses and major stakeholders. Every response is itemised, noted, accepted, or commented on. And I think that was the people who did reply to this consultation. It was quite insulting. I do think I appreciate what Councillor Chancellor has just said. Although I was quite shocked at the last strategy group meeting how little some members were aware of what other support is available and what people are needing now. I think that I can't remember the percentage, but I did find out last year that the number of discretionary housing payments had quadrupled. There was, I can't really say that as a statement because I can't remember, but it was an amazing total. And I think we all need to be aware of how much we're well into this welfare reform programme, and I think we should all be aware of what support is available for all our constituents and actively work to provide it. Discretionary housing payment is exactly that. It's discretionary. There is no guarantee that the people are being hit by this the liability cap will be able to get discretionary housing payment, and it's a finite scheme. Who knows if the government's going to guarantee it next year? I think there are real concerns about that. So it's not as if you can transfer the need to another source of income, another source of support. There is no guarantee that that's happening. I've rehearsed at several strategy group meetings my deepest concern about this. I understand the reasons why the council feels it has to do it. I don't think we as a council are saying enough about why we're having to do it, although I was pleased to see our leaders sign a letter along with another 39 Tory council leaders in the Observer on Sunday, calling for the government to just wake up to the impact of austerity and the non-achievement of the programme of austerity in local government across the country. So that was heartening. But I think we need to be shouting much more loudly about this. We cannot carry on. The impact on people across this district is going to be monumental over the next couple of years, and I don't think we're shouting loudly enough about it. And the final thing I had concerns about was that I had expressed concerns in both strategy meetings about the fact that we only consulted on one option. When the report originally came to strategy group, we had a number of options to consider as councillors. When it went out to the public, only one option was considered. And I noticed that at the end of October, there was a Supreme Court ruling which found against Harrogate Council, found that it actually be unlawful in a similar exercise of only consulting on one option and giving a misleading impression to residents that there was only one option. So I would really appreciate some comments on that particular case. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more?
Thank you, Chairman. I had to come back and Councillor Campbell mentioned my signature on the letter to the Observer, because what this is about, we recognise for some time that the austerity programme which the government had to undertake due to the state of the economy which the Labour government left when it was in power. And unfortunately, that has actually involved a lot of very difficult decisions. One thing I would say on that, though, is I think local government has taken more than its fair share of the pain. That's the point about signing the letter, is actually to say I think the pain should be shared elsewhere, particularly in the centre. Because obviously we are the deliverers of services, we're the ones who actually are on the front line, districts in particular, boroughs and also the county. And I think there's more scope to make savings in the centre, and that's why that letter was signed. Because the reality is, we can't go on spending like Labour did in the last Parliament, we haven't done. Because making political, which made Tory leaders a political statement, now I wish you well in the election. You're up against a very good MP. But I'm just saying, and hopefully he'll win again, that's no disrespect to you, I think he's an excellent MP. But the reality is, this is a long-term problem. It's going to get worse. From 2015 onwards, the next 4 years, whoever's in power, nationally, the problem's going to get a lot harder. And I think all of us in local government have to find ways of working together. I think the health service is a very interesting one, because I'm involved in that quite heavily at the moment. There's lots of money in the health service which maybe we'll be able to integrate into the local government arena to actually make sure we do look after our vulnerable and look after everybody in the sense that times are going to get tougher rather than easier. So I just want to make that point and that point about the letter. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Lou. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
No, I'm sorry. It is Councillor Randall.
Thank you, Chairman. I am very disappointed, and I was also very disappointed that actually we did only give one option. What we didn't give, and what I would have liked to have seen and put out to consultation, was an option where everybody bore the brunt of this. Because on the new figures that Councillor Guildford gave, I believe that if you're in a band B, that would be an increase of £68, just over. And if you're in band C, it would be £85. Bearing in mind how many that we have within this district, any households, it may have, if we gave the option that everybody bore the brunt, and what is the catchphrase that we hear all the time, we're in this together. Actually, it may have been a couple of pounds that we could have all shared and alleviated this problem.
Thank you. Councillor Wood.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was also going to highlight that we only gave one option, and actually I believe our consultation was unlawful according to the Supreme Court judgment on Haringey Council, who didn't give enough options. They didn't give the option that everybody could pay. They didn't give the option that the money could be taken from council reserves. So the judge said it was unfair and unlawful. And I think our consultation equally was so. And I'd just like to ask the opposition to stop saying that the Labour government left this country with a debt. It didn't. The Labour government it's all right to laugh, but that covers a lot, that tells you a lot. The Labour government was caught in a worldwide recession which started in America, and they admit it. The Labour government, Gordon Brown, helped the banks of this country, this nation, and the world to survive that economic crisis. And he put in place borrowings for that, which the Tory government at the time agreed with. So they're as much complicit in the borrowing as he was to bail out bankers and hedge funds. So it was not the Labour government who left it, who caused that debt. It was unfortunately a world recession. So I wish you'd stop saying that. This thing isn't true. And
they have to some note. No money left.
Councillor Osborne.
I'm sorry, Councillor Luke, but you're not going to like me. You would expect me to say something, would you? I don't mind. I'm afraid, Chairman, I disagree with the comment that it wasn't the Labour government. It had some problems at the time, but it was basically they left us in a big debt, and those are facts. Let's look at a worst case scenario, Chairman. I'm sorry to do politics, but I'm still listening. Let's say the Labour government get in next year. I'm still talking about the part. Still talking about it. I am sure.
Ask you, Councillor Osborne, actually to be very brief if we're going to have history.
Sorry?
If we're going to do history, can you be fairly brief about it?
Yes, yeah. Okay. I would expect that the Labour government would put through a lot of policies which we're talking about tonight, and spending will be more heavily guided towards the people and a less fairer situation than I believe it. It's not right that everybody should pay. These are welfare reforms.
People should start.
I'm sorry, but the system is there have been people out there that are getting more money than they should do. And this is to make it a more equal thing. There will always be people caught in the middle, and they do need help. But I'm sorry, like some famous statesman said, it can't be better to be, let's say, on the dole than it can to be to work. And that's what it is for a lot of people. I'm not saying that is the same circumstance we're talking about. So I'm sorry, I don't support what is happening. I don't support everybody should bear the brunt of it. The idea of welfare reform is to make it more equal for those people that have been paying the extra money. So I'm sorry, I don't support it.
Before we move on, anybody else who wishes to speak, I must ask you to keep to the recommendations, which is about our council tax. Because and I'm going to ask our monitoring officer if he has any comments to make about what's been said about the failure to give options.
Yes, Chairman, I just want to comment on the general point about whether it's lawful or not, in the sense that we expect officers to come forward with propositions which are lawful. Each case that gets cited has its unique characteristics, so just because something happens in one place doesn't mean to say it's applicable everywhere. That's the point. What I have a duty to do, if something is going to be agreed by council that turns out to be unlawful, as a prospect of being unlawful, then I have a duty to actually report that back. However, that has not been signified to me before. Don't have that expectation. I will look into it further as a result of the comments made, and I don't suggest you hold up your decision making, because I can always stop the decision if need be. The important point here is you have to determine your scheme by the 31st of January, and you don't have another opportunity to do that. So what you've had to date is advice from officers that everything is okay. I hear what's been said about unlawful. I could drop in cases here, there and everywhere if I need to on certain issues. So I appreciate the comment. I'll look into it.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Chandler, only on our recommendations before us, please.
I wanted to make a brief comment that in support of what the monitoring officer just said, in that I was in conversation with a QC recently. We all have our hobbies. And he was telling me of a number of cases where discarding some of the possible available options is perfectly lawful if you're carrying out a consultation. It's not necessary to include all of the options that might be available.
Well, we await the advice from our monitoring officer. And I'm now going to ask Councillor Bill if you would like to sum up.
If I can just come back on a couple of points raised. One is that I wasn't implying that people were not bothered to reply. I was implying, in fact, that they were happy in that because they didn't reply. We mentioned earlier in the chamber how people only respond when they're unhappy. Support, my fellow member mentioned, is available by various schemes, and I would hope that we will promote that to those that are affected. And the monitoring officer has already spoken on the issue raised in connection with the lawful decision. So the final point to come back on is Councillor Randall's point in that the figures I can confirm, it's 92% affected, range from £68.05 on band A per annum, which is £1.31 a week. B is £1.47 a week, and then C is £1.61 a week. So I would therefore ask that you approve these recommendations.
Members?
Agreed.
Those against?
Can we
Five against.
ask that be named, please?
Your individual
Recall
votes.
one, yeah, recall names, please.
Those three are in.
Two at the back. And three councillors at the front.
Record those individual votes.
Not recorded resolution, no.
No, it's individual votes.
Thank you very much. We move on then. I think this is your final appearance. Councillor Guildford.
Okay.
68-1404.
Thank you, Chair. You have before you 5 recommendations in connection with the capital and revenue budget medium-term financial budget.
I must ask you, I'm sorry, Councillor Guildford, it's my mistake. We'd actually been debating for so long that I'd missed out. 68-1403, and I do think it's quite important that we actually stick to the agenda, and this is an important item again. So I'm sorry. Would you mind starting it?
It's not my last one then.
No, I'm sorry, it's not. Okay, well this one should be shorter, should be 3 pages. It's just asking you to approve, note the report that the Council's Treasury Management Midyear to 2014 has been noted, and that the change in the credit rating methodology, whereby viability rating will no longer be considered as a key criteria to be noted. Again, I often feel that I'm a power act in this chamber and repeating to you year on year, but this is a report that comes through to you. And I ask that you approve really the Council's prudent approach and risk-averse policy to continue to drive our treasury management strategy, and therefore ask you to approve the recommendations in front of you. Thank you. Have a seconder. Councillor Paul.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think there's not much to say apart from congratulations to our 151 officer for keeping a watching eye on the fantastic interest rates that we're getting at the moment. Rather tongue-in-cheek, but I think excellent job with having her staff. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Anyone speak?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Simply to point out that if we are going to accept this recommendation, could we correct it to say a key criterion?
I'm very happy to accept that amendment. Do you wish to say anything in conclusion? No. No. Good. Well, in that case, we move then to Anyone against? Thank you. Now we come to your Councillor Gilbert's final appearance. 68-1404, capital and revenue budget, medium-term financial plan. Thank you.
Okay. You have before you 5 recommendations within the report. Again, we debated the strategy and we talked through the actual report itself. I am proposing that there are some amendments to recommendation 3 of the capital programme. So if I can focus more on those, in that I'm recommending that we remove the expenditure on the committee room chairs from the programme, and that we look to see if they actually do need replacing on health and safety plans, but if not, let's save that expenditure. And the other one is on the Lodge Road enhancements and the Section 106 monies, I know fund this scheme, and it is not a direct cost to the council, but it is thought that possibly we could look at how that monies could be spent in other ways. So therefore I'm suggesting that we amend the report and take those out. So, thank you. Can I ask that members approve those recommendations with the amendments?
Do you have a seconder? Councillor Frenchman. Do you wish to speak?
No, thank you.
Councillor Randall.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I'm pleased to hear that they've been removed, but when will they be brought back for us to discuss where they may be spent?
Yep, okay. Whilst I've asked, what I'm going to be speaking with the officers, looking at the process, and then looking at how different ideas can come back to the chamber. But it will be through the normal route, through strategy.
Any further? Do you wish to come back? Oh, sorry. Councillor Hills.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to say a couple of words on the Lodge Road. Yes, I agree, people have got different ideas and it needs looking at. And one thing I would mention, I looked at this a bit farther, and the changes that are requested on Lodge Road, and some changes to be made, originally come from the County Council. There were concerns raised there. And I also understand that one of the joint action groups, they have a road joint action group, concerns were also made regarding that. So what I would ask, whilst we've got different ideas, let's also take those into account.
Thank you. Councillor Brandon.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yes, I also have done quite a lot of work on that one as well. And the other thing that I would like to, when it says town centre enhancements, it's how far out do we go? Do we call all of Daventry town, or is it a specific, like a mile from the town centre? Because the thing that's coming up most of the time in so many debates and things, as Councillor Hills will be aware, is speeding traffic. Specifically, there's a lot of problems up Ashby Road. So, there could be, there's lots of ideas actually of how that S106 money, those contributions, could be spent, Pelican crossings or whatever, they may be put to, because as we know, County Council's got no money, so if it's an enhancement, if it's going to be somebody else's responsibility and out for a change, but it's actually going to enhance this town and make it safer, then, I've got those to be considered. And the other one that was on there was Overston Hall. And I keep going back over this one, and I keep, because to me, I keep finding these old reports. And in one part of this report that I found, and it was the DDC's report, it was saying there that a paragraph says, therefore, in conclusion, we would recommend that consideration be given to the demolition of the whole site. This is due to the considerable extent of damage and in the interest of health and safety of the personnel that would be required to work within the environment of this site. And, 6 more years have gone on now, more weathering's been done, so I still can't actually understand, where we're going with this site. If it was so dangerous then that we wouldn't actually want to put anybody in danger, why now it's we're still discussing this one. Thank you, gentlemen.
I ask Maria Taylor to speak, please.
Chairman, on the comments on the Section 106 agreements, I can advise members that there are quite a number of Section 106 agreements from over many years, which include items for traffic calming and road safety and town centre enhancements. So the process for those to be considered will often come from, like Councillor Hill said, from community safety, from the police, from issues that we never raise. So the town centre enhancements are in more detail in some agreements than in others, but it does refer to the retail centre of the town in all of those agreements. But they do vary. They've been built up over many years. Some have been done by us, some have been done by WNDC when they were in control. So as to what we can do with it, sometimes they're very tightly constrained, sometimes there's lots of choice. They're embedded in legal agreements. Just to clarify that.
Thank you. I'll ask Simon Bowers if he wishes to make any comments about Oasley Hall and the update on.
Thank you, Chairman. Certainly, as far as our understanding is, I'm happy to see a copy of the report. The words you're quoting are already sourced from the owners of the building who have a particular view of its status and what they might want to see for its future. It may be useful to members to know that we are in continued discussion with the owners of Oasley Hall, and there is now a suggestion that they may allow us to secure the cost of carrying out a condition survey against the value of the site, which would actually put us in a much better, much more secure position to use the council's money and know that we could ultimately get it back, which does somewhat displace, if it was to be executed, what I said the strategy group a couple of weeks ago. So that's probably of some assistance. Very further questions, obviously.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gilford, do you want to sum up?
Yes. I'm glad to hear that you're pleased that we've taken the initiative to take something out of that programme. Maria has explained the section 106 detail. Regarding Overston Hall, I too was a little concerned with the way the expenditure was going on Overston Hall. It says within the report that the report has got to come back to strategy before any significant amounts of money are spent on the scheme. So, in summary, I'd like to propose that you approve your recommendation.
All against? Thank you very much. We move on then to SG 701401, proposed March's extension revised business plan, which was originally an exempt item. I understand that Councillor Miller is going to be speaking about this. Councillor Over?
Yes, I have, Madam Chairman. This is also me again on the board of council for the obvious agree. I think can I just say that the margin extension is for Hambleside Lane Law, right? And you've seen this has been very important in my view. The Chairman, members recall that the Council approved a business plan for the March's extension project at a meeting on the 24th of July 2013. Approval was also given to amend the capital programme to include the scheme budget and to later subsequent budget for the proposed hotel, what was known as the Town Centre Vision Site 3. Since the approval of the original business plan, the tenant and Ambleside Daymore have reviewed their requirements and concluded a significantly larger extension is required. Therefore, it is necessary to revise the business plan and seek your approval for this, and the associated change, of course, to the capital programme. As you are aware, Daventry District Council has an extensive portfolio that includes industrial and commercial properties that over the years have generated significant income. In addition to our policy objectives supporting local businesses and creating employment and economic regeneration, which this is all about. Income from these investment properties, as the report makes clear, supports our revenue budgets and funds essential council services. This is an important and timely invest for income project with a good return on capital, and Hambleside Daymore, an existing tenant, which we enjoy a sound and mutually beneficial relationship. With the construction industry on the up, this business, a key supplier, the investment comes with a profit of renewed skilled manufacturing in a critical period. The revised project budget is some 3.8 million, an increase of 1.8 million, and will deliver 1,235 square metres of additional space and an income stream to the council of some £91,000 of income per year. The project, as you can see in the business plan, has been subject to full scrutiny, and whilst not without risk, this is a building that by design can accommodate in the future, if necessary, a number of options in case it should ever be a default position. Members, you have before you on page 77, SG 17401, recommendations 1 and 2, which I trust you will be happy to endorse. I see this as being entirely beneficial and in actual fact fulfills our strategy providing economic regeneration strategy, and I'm very pleased to present this report. We'll ask you to endorse the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Seconder? Right. Quite a lot of you vying for that. Right. Councillor Hills. You're just fractions ahead.
I want to toss again then.
Yes.
I fully support this. I remember going along to when their building was first opened. They're a company that we should support. We should support our businesses. It brings, as Councillor Over said, an income stream into us, which is very important. It will bring jobs. So I can't see anything benefits for the council, for the community, and for those who are seeking employment. So to me, the benefits win all hands round on this one. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. No one else to speak? Councillor
No, in a second.
Oh, is that what it was? No? Yes, well, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm calling.
Thank you. Sorry, madam. I think, I do agree with Councillor Hills. However, this is far more recent. It presents a picture of Daventry, external of Daventry. A quick check-up this year. We're not far away from £100 million being invested in Daventry. That ain't bad for a small market town, is it? Some have been pledged, some have been paid up already. But over the shall we call it the planned period of the master strategy, this money has come to Daventry, this poor lowly little market town. If we use Daynor as an example, and then we add on to that the UTC, the Icon, High Force, Henry Boot, Catesby Tunnel, or whatever it's called, the Charwell Tunnel, it's sending a message out. It's sending a message out to investors. This is the place to be. This is where it is. Low unemployment will bring in high-tech, high echelon earners, all for the benefit of the town. Thank you, madam.
Thank you. Councillor Owen, do you want to sum up?
Well, I agree with all those comments, and I think our reputation goes before us, and I hope we continue to be a prosperous place. We have very limited levels of unemployment here, which I have to say very, very good news, but we are trying to raise technology and skill base, which I think is very important. That's the point that my colleague has made, and other people have made from time to time, and I think this goes some way to achieving that objective too. So I'm just asking the committee, please, the members, if they would just endorse the report.
Members, you happy to endorse?
Agree.
Anyone against? No, in that case we'll move on to item 10, schedule of council and committee meetings. Come to light. Councillor Osborne, come to light. Are you proposing that these are accepted?
Most definitely.
Thank you.
I'm agreeing as well.
May I have a second? Thank you. Councillor Miller. Very swiftly.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Right. Now we come to review of polling districts. Right or wrong ones? Well, some people are being suggested that there should be a change, so there may well be things to be said on this. Who is Tony? Thank you, Tony. Can you lead us through this, please?
Thank you, Chairman. We have conducted a review of polling places, polling districts, polling places and polling stations in accordance with the Electoral Registration and Administration Act, which tells us we must complete the process by 31st of January next year. And this report is to council hopefully to achieve that. We've heard earlier this evening about encouraging electors to to actually vote. And part of the considerations here is about accessibility of polling stations, not just the access to polling stations. So those issues have been taken into account in the work that's been undertaken. The consultation, public consultation started on the 22nd of August, but that was preceded by a consultation with stakeholders to actually have a critical look at the polling stations we were using, to gather information and for the returning officer to put together his proposals which went out to the public consultation. A number of responses were received on the whole range of polling stations that we use, and those responses are set out in the appendix of the report on page 87 onwards, polling station by polling station. What I propose to do is to focus on the proposed changes, and those are set out in the report in section 6 on page 84. The first one relates to the Ashby Road Community Centre in Daventry. The proposal is that the electors from the Timpton estate, which currently use that particular location as a polling station, are provided with a new polling station at Mayfield Park. And that provides a more convenient location for the voters. Moving on to, just before I leave Ashby Road Community Centre, we had one or two questions come in respect of the other voters who use that station, and there is no change proposed for the other voters. It just relates to the residents of the Timpton estate. Moving on to Ashbyfield School, the proposal is that electors on the Land Farm estate and Middlemore estates used a new polling station at the Daventry Court Hotel. This has been used in the past some years ago. The use was stopped because of difficulties over booking, but we now have assurances from the current management that we can have adequate facilities there. So the proposal is to move the electors from Land Farm and Middlemore to the Daventry Court Hotel. In respect of the remaining voters on Ashby Fields, the proposal is to leave them at the Ashby Fields School. The Ashby Fields School has been one of the polling stations that we've had a number of comments made, and we have worked with the school, and we believe now we have a solution where we can operate a single polling station whilst the school remains open. So we've tried to work with the school to achieve that. Stephen Hill Sports Club, the polling arrangements there have proved difficult and unsatisfactory, and we're now proposing to use a new polling station at the Pepper Mill on Westerbury Square. In Church Brampton, we are proposing to revert back to the school at the Brampton's Primary School that had been used until recent elections. There were some concerns about the school closure there. We tried the St Paul's Church. That wasn't hugely satisfactory, and we have had discussions with the school about using the school whilst the school remains open. And finally, in terms of the changes, Kelmarsh. Previously, we've used the lime shed at Kelmarsh Hall, and in fact other rooms at Kelmarsh Hall. We've had some difficulties there with bookings and being moved on election day, which have proved not satisfactory. We used a new polling station at the Budget Centre for the last election. That has proved to be successful, and we're proposing that becomes the designated polling station as we go forward. I've mentioned the issue around Ashbyfield School and also Church Brampton School. We've tried to avoid using schools where we can, and those are the only two schools that we're actually proposing to use, and that is on the understanding that we can get the arrangement with the schools stay open, and we're certainly working with the schools on that basis at the moment. What perhaps is worth noting, though, is that the electoral registration provides the returning officer with an entitlement to use schools, and therefore that is something that we need to consider. So, in conclusion, we've carried out the review in accordance with the legislation. As I say, I've taken you through the changes that we propose, and the other stations that we're not proposing any change at this time. I therefore ask you to consider the advice on page 83. And the Council firstly notes the outcome of the review. Secondly, that the arrangements regarding polling districts, polling places and polling stations in the Daventry district as detailed in the report be agreed. And thirdly, that the governance and HR manager, in consultation with the returning officer, be granted delegated authority to make such arrangements to Daventry districts, district councils, parliamentary polling divisions and polling place order as considered appropriate from time to time prior to the next full review scheduled for 2019. And the reason for the third piece of advice is if polling stations are not available to us between now and the next review, then there is delegated authority for us to find a suitable method. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Before I call on, I've got three names here. But before we get to that point, have I got a proposer, please? Thank you. And do you want to say anything?
Yeah, second.
I'll second it. Second.
Yeah.
Thank you. Right. Councillor Elaine Swift.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. First, on page 34, I did comment for Silvertop, and I did agree that it was the best location. Now, in my ward, we have a little village that is called Hazel Beach, and it will have no police station, and you have quite a lot of elderly people. So if they do not vote by postal vote, they will not go to Nesby. It's 3 miles. They will not go to Kenmarsh. That is I think it's a little village, and I think it's 50 voters, something like that. But they have no police station, and the road, you cannot walk. You have no public footpath, and it's a tiny road. So those 50 people, I don't know what to do for them because they have no way except maybe the telephone box. That is the only place in the village. So I would like to see what we could do for Hazel Beach because I don't think Nesby nor Kenmarsh is correct. I know it's a small, it's just 50 people in the village, in the district. But for me, what do you do when they're in the middle of nowhere with no police station? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chairman. Just on that point, actually, I seem to remember Hazel Beach was part of my county division. And as a county councillor, just was a polling station in Hazel Beach at one stage. And I take a board the point Councillor Daventry is saying, it's not very accessible when you haven't got a car or what have you, to go to one of the other villages. But I seem to think there was a polling station at one time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rundle.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Yes, welcome this report, and I know there'll be many of us in this room that will be really pleased that the schools aren't closing, and we've been able to accommodate something. There was in my ward, on Drayton ward, I put in concerns over the polling station at the sports centre, and we're now using the pub at the mill. But a lot of people, especially within the town, will know that frequently that public house closes, opens, closes, and if that does happen, that the sports centre is now just having a whole new refurbishment, so a whole new car park. It will be absolutely, disabled access will be in place. Walls have come down and everything, so if the pub did close, it's nice to know that actually we will have a building that we could switch back to. Thank you.
Chairman, just a comment on the last point. I mean, I think you've hit the nail on the head with that because we've used the hotel before. and then we find we couldn't use the hotel. So I need the flexibility to be able to switch back or change between now and the next review.
Thank you for that. Councillor Ashbury?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, totally agree that we should have polling stations, but we have to be realistic, really. We've been talking about cutting costs tonight. Polling stations cost quite a lot at the moment. 12 hours on a general election and 10 hours on our elections. I've got two constituents, parishes in my ward. One's got 111 voters, one's got 176. And there's quite a lot more in my area, so they've got very few. And I think we ought to look in the almost compulsory postal voting on these sort of areas, Chairman. I'm not quite sure what the legality is, but I think we're trying to get people to be involved. Honestly, it's illegal not to vote in Australia. You get prosecuted. We're talking about getting the electorate involved with our activities. The first item we got this evening. We're also trying to cut the books a little bit too. I think not the book, I said I know it's a legal thing, but I mean, I'm not sure whether we can push the government to go down this route for the smaller polling stations, based on cost, and to get the electorate involved with our activities.
Thank you, Councillor Ashbury. Councillor Long.
Thank you very much, Chairman. On behalf of the residents of Abbey North, I welcome the report and I welcome the two changes that have been made. One for the residents of Tipkin who have long had to travel to vote and now will have the opportunity of voting at Mayfield Park. And also with the ever-increasing size of Livermore, it's welcome to note that the move to the hotel will actually be beneficial, and one hopes, taking on Councillor Ashbury's comment, that perhaps this will encourage more people to vote and perhaps increase the turnout. So very welcome the report, Chairman, and very grateful for the changes.
Thank you. Councillor Paul?
Thank you, Madam. An observation. I know Councillor Randall said that she put in a response. However, having flitted through the pages, Madam, I note 11 Conservative councillors, 1 Lib Dem, no Labour comments, none from UKIP. However, our much aligned People's Panel put in 4 to 5 comments. Just a comment, Madam Chairman.
Observation.
Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you, Chair. Just a point actually on what Councillor Ashbury was saying, is there a feasibility of having a mobile polling station that travelled around to some of these more isolated villages?
Chairman, there is always a possibility of making the back of a car a polling station, as long as it can be done so that the electric is in a secret ballot and can't be observed by anyone else. I think the problem we have with this is we need good, accessible buildings, and that is the real point. And what you find, we have a set of polling stations across the whole of this district, 80 plus in actual fact, and some of them are excellent and some of them wouldn't pass the excellence test, but they are, however, as convenient as we and I as returning officers can make them, and that's my role in this. If I can't make them convenient, if I keep moving them around, people do forget from one election to the next. So what I'm really saying is that it'd be really good to keep as many as we have in the same place that they're at, even though some aren't excellent, some of them, as I say, wouldn't pass all the tests, but they are good enough. And when people know they can go to vote. And that, in essence, for me, is making sure that that is remembered. We did have an incident at the last election where an outside returning officer moved a polling station, and actually, I can't tell you whether that made any difference whatsoever. All I can say is that people are creatures of habit, and if you can stop moving these around, all the better.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron.
Just a very brief comment. I just wanted to observe that I thought how well the review was conducted, and I did take part as a member of the reports on parish council, and also how clearly the responses were laid out. I thought it was just, we need to acknowledge that it seems to be conducted very well and reported on very clearly. And then finally, this might sound like a facetious comment, but it isn't meant to be. I think it's welcome that the schools can stay open. If it's a case of a single classroom being evicted, though, in order to have one space as a polling station, I wonder whether they could be invited to use the council chamber for the day, because that would solve our public engagement problems and possibly create more goodwill with the school.
Thank you. Councillor Luke?
I did comment actually. I don't know what happened to my comment, but I made an old comment about Ashley School particularly. So my comments were there. What happened to them, I don't know.
Thank you. Councillor Miller, do you wish to? Yes.
Yes, Chairman, if I can come back on the point raised by Councillor Asprey about postal voting. The legislation doesn't allow us to impose postal voting, but what we can do is encourage, and you as leaders in the community can also have a role in that.
Thank you. Members? Sorry, I didn't offer the opportunity. One more.
Okay, we've got them.
Oh, we got them.
Just go for it.
Yes, okay.
Breathe again.
Interim review of constitution, item 12, monitoring officers units.
Thank you, Chairman. I usually give you the pleasure of an annual review. This year, I decided in the festive spirit to give you an interim review. We have an interim review because we have a development that's been permitted under a regime, development consent order regime, that's for Bill 3. Now, our applications are coming in on the back of that, which we have not got covered in the Constitution. So there's the need to have this resolved, because the applications need to be determined in a timely manner, and more are expected. So what I've done in the report is giving you quite a bit of narrative about that particular proposed change to the planning functions. That's the obvious place for it to sit. And to bear in mind on the consent order process that essentially we're acting as the Secretary of State's agent, if you like. It's a kind of delegation from the Secretary of State. Very unusual. It's a very interesting examination apparently for those who attend. The opportunity, though, also comes about as a result of bringing a report unusually in the cycle to deal with some other matters. So there are a couple of other matters in the report. One is in respect of planning functions again, about planning objections. And Plan Committee considered some proposed changes and relayed them through to me as Monitoring Officer for consideration. And from a governance perspective, which is what I'm looking at primarily, I can see that increases the robustness of the governance of the authority. So I have no problems in recommending that to the Council as a whole. The other opportunity is just to tidy up something, to be honest, which has been happening recently, which is Scrutiny and Improvement Committee and the involvement in scrutiny and improvement, particularly because we had some strategy group members involved. Now, the Constitution doesn't allow for strategy group members to be involved, but you recall strategy group once upon a time, not so long ago in fact, used to be just the administration. And the point of scrutiny is to challenge, if you like, the ruling group, the administration's decisions. So I have no problem with what's been happening, which is the opposition members being involved in scrutiny. I just suggest to you we need to tidy up the rules to allow that to happen formally. So it's only been spotted recently as an issue, and that said, it's not an issue that's actually caused any consternation that I've heard about. So I'm quite happy to recommend that to you. So those are the three changes that I would like to have endorsed by Council, and we can bring those into immediate effect, so agreed by Council Raleigh. And the other point I've got is the change to the local code of conduct, which I'm going to bring in. I do have some authority under the Constitution, I'm pleased to say, to be able to respond to legislative clarifications and updates. But I wanted it to come to members so that it could be seen to be dealt with in public, and also to bring it to your attention as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I will need his proposals. Thank you. Councillor Morgan. And...
Second or first, Chair.
Yes, second.
Second or first.
Did I see your hand?
You did.
Thank you. Councillor Osborne. Thank you, Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Actually, I wanted to pick up on the point about scrutiny. And it appears that scrutiny has been going slightly wayward on this particular issue. Because we'd I'm going to fully blame Councillor Campbell on this one. Because Councillor Campbell was participating in task assignments and yet is on strategy. And the reason I wanted to really highlight that was because Councillor Luke's point earlier about chairing, etc. I think this really demonstrates the fact that it really is an open house. And actually this change further facilitates that position of it being about everybody across the council having the opportunity, apart from the strategy, portfolio holders, of course, at the part of the administration, having the input. So I think hopefully, particularly Councillor Luke, this also addresses your point earlier. So I definitely support the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Osborne?
I reserve my right to speak. If there is a debate, that's I don't want to prolong it.
Yes, I'm not sure there's a... Does anyone wish to comment? Good. Nobody wishes to comment.
Agreed.
Are you happy to endorse the recommendation? Thank you very much. There is a general hubbub. We have another item. Let's deal with it, please. And that is urgent business. Is there any urgent business? Thank you. And the care meeting closed. You're now going to have your mulled wine or whatever. Thank you.